All right, so in this video, let's take on table views because they're kind of tricky to do in UIKit, and I think you're going to really love how you do it in SwiftUI. So here I've started a new project, UIKit project, and all I've done is I pre-declared this array of strings of favorite cities that I have. And what we're going to do is have a simple table view that just displays that list of cities. So over here in the storyboard, we'll go ahead and add a table view. So I'm going to select table view here and drop it. Now this table view, I've decided I want it to be in the center. I want it to be padded 20 points off the left and right, so a natural padding on the edges, and let's do 300 points high. So again, all of those decisions that I'm making here, we actually are going to get a lot of that for free in SwiftUI, but in UIKit, you do have to specify all these constraints. You have to be very literal about where you're putting everything. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click on the centering. We'll go ahead and add those two constraints. And of course, things are red because I haven't fully constrained the table view. So it really doesn't know like how wide it should be and so forth. So we can go back and I can click on those other constraints and I can say 20 on the left and 20 on the right. And I'll give it a height of 300. And when I do that, now it's fully constrained. So there's nothing confusing the system about where it's going to go, its width and height. So now we fully constrained the table view. And the other thing that a lot of newbies forget, and even experienced professionals forget, is with table views, you need to set the data source and delegate. And so what we're going to do is go ahead and do that. Here is the data source, and here is the delegate. And now I've set those up here in the storyboard. Now, additionally, we have to have code that handles the right things for those. So, and we have to actually say that our view controller, which is inheriting from UI view controller, is also going to conform to a couple protocols, which is the UI table view delegate and the UI table view data source. And of course, when I do that, it's going to say, well, now you haven't conformed to it yet. So I'll go ahead and say, great, go ahead and give me the functions that are required to conform. And one of them is number of rows in section, and the other is cell for row at index path. So let's just, number of rows in section is easy. We can just say return favorite cities dot count. And that will give us the number of rows because each one of these is going to be in a different row. Now, the table view cell for row at index path is always a little more complicated because we have to dequeue a reusable cell and so forth, and we have to make sure that the cell identifier is set properly. So let's go through all that. So first of all, over here, we want to add a table view cell into it. So I'll go ahead and click plus and type in cell, and here's a table view cell, and I'm going to drag and drop it inside here. And then what I want to do is I'm going to select what I think I've done is I've selected the table view cell, and I'm going to give it that identifier name. But when I come over here, I see the view is not a table view cell. And therefore, you can sort of futz around and keep looking through all here, which I know many people do, including me. And I'm like, where is the spot where I set the cell identifier? Well, it turns out I don't have the table view cell selected, even though it kind of looks like I do. So what I'm going to do is bring out this list here and see it's actually gotten the content view, which is a subview of the table view cell. So if we click on the table view cell, now over here, I can see that if that I've actually got the table view cell. So when I come here to this, I see a reuse identifier and I can say cell. So I type in my reuse identifier there. We can go ahead and close this now over on the left. And let's go ahead and bring that up a little bit. And now what we want to do is actually use it. So we'll close this out over here to give us a little more code space. And I'm going to say let cell equal table view. So we're asking the table view that's getting passed in here to dequeue a reusable cell with the identifier of cell. And we're going to say that we know for sure this is going to work because we have set it in the storyboard. So then after that, now we want to actually, we're called with an index path. So we're called with the row that we're in. So I'm going to say cell.textlabel.text equals, and in this case, it's favorite cities indexPath.row. And then finally, we want to return the cell. So let's see, if I do Command B, that fully compiles, so that's good. So let's go do a Command R and go ahead and run this in the simulator and see what we get. And sure enough, here's our table view. We can see the lines here between each, and we can see some nice padding on the left and right side. And we see that the table view expresses those 5 favorite cities. So that's how we do it in UIKit. Now let's jump over and see how we do it in SwiftUI. So I'm going to go over here and do Window, Table View, SwiftUI. So again, we just have our starter project here. And what I'm going to do just to save time is let me go back to here, and I'm going to grab the same declaration and copy it so that you don't have to watch me retype it. And let's just do a quick build and a quick resume and just make sure that we've got a green button here. Good, we're all good. So now what we want to do is actually do a table view here. So the way we do this is using VStack, because when you think about every row in the table view is actually an item that is going to be in a VStack. So I'm going to take this out and I'm just going to say VStack here. So in this VStack, we're going to do a for each to iterate over every one of these cities. So I can say for each, and I can say favorite cities. And then here we're going to do this \self. And don't worry about what this is. Just accept the fact that you need to place that there. And then we're going to say open left bracket, underbar in. So what this is doing is this is like a closure. We're saying that the parameter that would be passed here would be each city. In this case, we actually want to use that. So we'll say city here rather than the underbar. Underbar would just throw it away. But now we can reference city. So the city variable is going to take on each one of these values. So now we could say text of city and go ahead and build this. And let's go ahead and clean this up on the canvas, say try again. And sure enough, we now have 5 different items all in basically like a table view. Now, it's not as pretty as the table view that we had in UIKit, so we can fix that pretty easily. One of the things that we can do is we can, there is something called a list item, which when you have something in a list, it will give it that nice padding. It will left justify. So I'm just going to say list here. And boom, now we've got them all left justified, and we have the nice lines or marks or dividers between each cell. So the only other thing is the fact that this thing is right up at the top now, and that's because this list iteration with the VStack wants to take up all the space. You see this blue line at the top and the bottom? It's because the VStack is taking up the whole thing. So we want to limit the size of the VStack. Well, remember how we limited the vertical size by setting a constraint in UIKit. So here, what we would do is say frame height colon 300. So we've just added that modifier in, and now there we go. It is centered in the view, just like the other one. And that's it. That's how easy it is to do a table view. Table view is basically you have an array of items, and you have inside a VStack, you are going to iterate over with a for each or a list the item that you want to iterate over, and then you do your magic here. This text could have been anything. So it can be a much more complicated view that brings in an icon and an image and does all sorts of things to make up your what would be inside your UI table view cell.